Hey everybody, this is Howard Chung, the Vice President of Franchise with John L. Scott, but I'm not going to talk about the franchise side today. I've got a very special guest. Those of you who've been with John L. Scott for years, you know Emmanuel. He's just been such an instrumental part of the culture and education, but he's here today to talk about something very, very important. There's been some forms changes, Emmanuel, so give us some insight here.
Form changes which impact so many things we talked about for the last 18 years, about business development, about value proposition, about how it is that we serve people, both sellers and buyers, and it's just changed how it is that that's going to be explained and how that's going to be communicated to the public. It's important that we express what our value is to the buying public, the selling public. The challenge is now that we have these forms that changes the way, not only the way we do real estate, but how we then close real estate transactions. So Access Home Closing, the joint venture with John L. Scott, our company was the first to speak to NWMLS, as well as Annie Fitzsimmons, who represents the Washington Realtors Association, and to Jeannie Simpson, who used to be our legal counsel, who's serving at the NWMLS for these forms. The unfair advantage I think that Access has is that it's being led by a real estate person. My heart is to serve the clients through the agents, and it still exists in this context. How it is that we close a transaction in this context with these new forms is really important. One of the things is that settlement statements to this point, up till October 3rd, have been instrumental in terms of communicating what is paid to the different firms on commissions. But that settlement statement, when you see the commissions up till this point, has been on the seller side of the statement. The buyers would never see what the commissions were in that settlement statement. After October 3rd, any contracts that are then created post that date will have to have on the settlement statement things for the buyers to see. That creates a different way of making sure that the buyer's agents, everyone in the transaction, are looking at the settlement statements, ensuring that everything's correct. But prior to that is when the communication happens. When someone opens escrow and communicating that and commission disbursement statements, all those things, typically it's been pretty straightforward. The challenge is we need to be clear on the contract. I'm not going to pretend to be legal counsel, but on Form 21 or vacant land or condominium, there's a line that will show compensation to the buyer side. The challenge is that there's a box that says, unless you agree to what's been offered and you click other means other. We don't know what that number of the form is. It could be a 34, it could be a company-owned form, it could be 41C, we just don't know. So one of the things our company is committed to is in our process is the first thing we do after reviewing the contract is to ensure that that line, what is happening with commission? How is it going to be compensated to the buyer's firm? That is such an important question because that buyer agent and that buyer's firm should get paid.
This is such an important point that you're just making right now. Number one, whenever we hear these forms changes, we go, oh, no big deal. It's just, I just need to know a little bit of a couple of different technical things. This is not a technical thing. This is a philosophical shift, right? It's going to be so much more consumer friendly, of course, and that just takes on a whole new set of meanings. You need to have somebody like Access who's not just, and a lot of times once we hand things over to escrow, we just cross our fingers or we make assumptions like it'll all be fine. But in all reality is we need partners like you're talking about right now who's literally looking at that on behalf of the brokers, right? On behalf of the agents to be like, we better see exactly how this is going to be paid out because the consumer might be questioning and asking questions and value proposition and stuff comes back up. So this is so important, I think, that you guys are taking this initiative.
Our philosophical approach is ultimate client relationship attached to this platform and process to ensure that everyone's taken care of, the consumer, obviously, and our clients, which are the agents. The challenge is, depending on what that form says, then we have to make sure that we reach out to the parties involved to ensure that what we're reading in that contract is what's actually intended. So if the box is not checked that they're accepting as offered, and we look at that other form, we're making sure that the math works, that all the parties agree to what that is saying. And all parties sometimes might be a lender. So sometimes there may be part of the commission that would then be also given to the buyer for closing costs or something to that effect. Great, not a problem. This has been done for years. The challenge will be as these loans show up, the loans are changing as this market shifts. There's arms, there's a lot of different creativity that's happening in the lending world. So we have to ensure that those monies that could be part of the commission that now are part of maybe closing costs, that those are allowed to be part of that loan. Because what happens in real estate transactions when something doesn't close on time It's because someone didn't perform. It's not magic. It's not escrow who can make things happen. People have to perform, including lenders. And lender docs are typically the last thing that happens. And we're at the mercy of ensuring that all those parts of the contract are agreed to by the lender if there's a mortgage on the property. So if there's going to be credits, do those credits fit in within the type of loan being asked for by the buyer? Also, what if the buyer agency agreement includes that the buyer will pay X amount of percentage of commission and that seller didn't match that number? How does that monies get to escrow? We want to ensure that that happens prior to closing. So that's the conversations we have, not just with the buyer's agent, but with the buyers. How do they want those funds to be given to escrow? It could be a personal check. We would rather ACH or wiring, because that way it's secure. Everything in our platform at Access Home Closing is all within the platform. We do not send wiring instructions through email. We do not send forms through email. It's all within the platform. If you think of it just like your bank, you have multi-factor authentication. You have to prove that it's you that is in there. Access Home Closing is like a bank. We do everything within the application to ensure security, and we will not have wire fraud that way. So all of this sounds really operational, which it is, and it's administrative, which it is. It's just a ledger, which all that is true. What the difference is, our commitment is to ensure that we're having this communication as early as we can get a hold of both parties to ensure that everything on our ledger is correct and it's agreed to by all parties, so that we don't slow down closing, nor do we have agents that close a transaction and don't get compensated as they expected. This is not just philosophical, it is practical. It's pragmatic in terms of people's livelihoods.
Well, this is a time for change. I mean, obviously the market has changed, right? Our consumers are changing, the behaviors, the forms have changed, and so ultimately it's now time for a change in the brokers and agents' behaviors. I would highly recommend and encourage you to consider using Access as your closing partner, right? Because of all the things that Emmanuel's sharing right now, and their integrity and their operational excellence, the technology, everything. On top of that, they are your partners for business development. So accesshomeclosing.com is for the transactions, right? When you're actually going to open up a transaction, accesshomeclosing.com. But then there's this other one, right? I mean, especially for a lot of you who are like looking for that next deal, this is the time to do some geographic target marketing, some farming. If you got listings that aren't selling, this is a time to basically utilize the tools at accesshometools.com. And that is available for everybody. It's incredible. It's two separate accounts that you would create. One is basically obviously for your transactions, but one is for your business development. And that is something that I'm super excited about. Give us a little insight on that.
Access Home Tools is a product in which we pay for access to data. And CoreLogic, which is the Cadillac, Lamborghini of real estate data in the country, hyperlocal targeting. So yes, imagine looking for your next listing. I don't think geographic targeting has been more important than it is today. People raise their hands if they want to buy or sell. Typically, we respond to that. It's a very reactionary business that we're in. But the proactive approach to helping people discover what equities they have in their home and considering the next part of their journey, or for listing agents, up until a few months ago, could put a stick in the ground and be assured that it would sell. There wasn't a whole lot of farming to do because, hey, the market was coming to you, right? I'm just waiting for the multiple offers and I'll just pick which one I like. That world has changed. And what we've not done for, probably 7+ years is how do we target specific buyers? Many people use their version of MLS for what we call reverse prospecting. So there's this list of buyers that the system matches to your listing because they've been looking for something like yours. But those are the buyers who are in the market who have raised their hands and some have registered, and now you know that they're in that condition. The challenge is there are buyers in the market that don't know they're buyers.
Right.
And there are people living in their homes, and the data we have within this system, Access Home Tools, which Chase Pennington is a master of. I just love how incredibly competent he is and his brain, how it works to help agents grow business. Imagine taking the data that is available. There's algorithms based on when people live in their home, how long they've lived in their home, the likelihood they're going to move within this algorithm. There's a median length of time they're there. There's this search that we can do, adding 1 year on either side of that, and you find what we call next sellers. Well, next buyers are in that same kind of category. They have a certain amount of equity, they've lived in their home for a period of time, they've outgrown it because the bedroom count or the size count means that they're going to be moving up. And we all know that people move within 5 miles typically of their home. So we can take data that is as rich as it comes, CoreLogic, again, best data in the country. We can go and target those next potential buyers that don't even know the amount of equity in their home because The reality is most of their agents have never told them what kind of equity.
So what you're basically saying is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, so one of the things that I'm going to do a little different is I'm going to actually target market the most likely potential buyers that are out there who aren't even on the MLS yet. And so that is one of the strategies that I'm going to bring on, especially in this changing market. You need a broker like myself who understands that kind of marketing. Plus, I get additional listing and buyer opportunities as a result of using the tools.
I was in an office a week ago or so, and top 1% agent, I watched his eyes light up. We were demonstrating this data, and we reversed it, because most people think of farming purely as listings, which I'm in support of. Lab Book 7, hyperlocal target marketing, go look at it. It's farming is more important than ever. But you can flip that. It's just like any tool. Hey, if I can use it for this, if I can use a hammer to pull out a nail, I could probably use a hammer to punch in a nail, or whatever analogy you want to use. So I'm watching his eyes light up because like, oh, here's a solution to my listings that have been on the market for X amount of time. And it's a challenging time for listing agents and buyers agents, even though I think that's swinging a little bit. So we have to be more proactive in our approach of how it is that we're going to get the eyeballs on that property and have kitchen table conversations with more people.
So a lot of information today. We got 3 resources for you, which is accesshomeclosing.com, accesshome.tools.com, and finally, you just want some one-on-one attention, you want a presentation, you want a demo for your team, just a one-on-one, bookwithchase.com.
Bookwithchase.com.
Who's excellent in terms of just being able to give the full demo. He could do it by Zoom as well, of course. And so we're so excited that you are partnering, you are leading this initiative. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, Emmanuel.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.